Okay. All right. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. I am excited that we are kicking off our fall sessions again today with a session that's going to be focusing on green crab encroachment on waters in Southeast Alaska and moving north, from what I understand. Um, and just a few quick reminders before we go ahead and get started here. First, my name is Krista Haringa. I serve as the coordinator for the Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network. If you are not on mute, go ahead and hit that mute button. If you are joining by phone, you can go ahead and hit *6. We are going to have time for Q&A towards the end of today's session. Please feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the chat as we go through. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded, so if there's anything you want to go back to after the fact, we'll have this up on our website here in the next few days. And if you feel comfortable, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And maybe think of one thing that you're really excited about fall right now. And if you want to share that with the rest of the folks here. Our offices are located in the traditional homelands of the Lower Tanana Dene. A number of our staff are located here, but we also have one of our tribal liaisons located in Shaktoolik. And we have a number of team members that you see on this slide, and all of the work that we do in collaboration with our team. The Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network is housed under the Alaska Climate Adaptation Science Center. So the Learning Network provides learning opportunities and technical support, but we also try to connect folks with some of the resources that are available through the CASC network. We also operate in collaboration with the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society. And so together, it's a pretty large network. And before we kind of dive into the main topic that we're going to be focusing on today, I did just want to briefly mention that today's project is supported in part by the Alaska CASC Ambassadors program. And so this project that you're going to be hearing about today is one of the first three projects that were supported by the Ambassadors program. We're going to have a chance to hear from another of these projects, I believe in December. And I just wanted to raise that as a point because the next round of projects that are going to be supported by the CASC, there's an application due the 1st of October. So it's coming right up. And just a few kind of particular details about this opportunity. It's available to folks who are faculty members of UA, so across the UA system, including rural campuses. Projects that are kind of working in direct support to communities are ones that they'll be looking at to award. And with that, I wanted to introduce our speakers today. First, Genelle Winters with the Metlakatla Indian Community. She will kind of be introducing sort of the kind of an early awareness of green crab in their area. And Barbara Morgan and Charmaine Lewis, both with the University of Alaska Southeast, will be sharing about some of the education efforts that they've been involved with in terms of just helping people learn about green crab and setting up monitoring efforts. more broadly. And so with that, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to Genelle.
Thank you. I will attempt to share my screen. Okay, you see that all right?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Awesome. First of all, I'd like to thank Barbara Morgan for inviting us to be part of this project. Metlakatla Indian Community has been paying very close attention to European green crab as an invasion threat for quite a long time now. So we're glad to be included in this discussion about European green crab. And I really like the idea of a community action approach because that's how this is going to be managed, is with an entire community support. So just to kind of, I think probably most everybody on this call is familiar with European green crab and why they're a threat, but just in case you aren't familiar with it, the European green crab, it's classified as one of the top 10 worst invasive species in the world. It's credited with the collapse of the softshell clam industry in Maine. If you ever want to horrify yourself, go watch some YouTube videos of what green crab have done to the East Coast shellfish industry, and it will really ramp up your concern level for why we want to take this threat seriously in Southeast Alaska. The behaviors it has is that it impacts eelgrass, coastal erosion. It has negative impacts on juvenile salmon, on herring, native crabs, and shellfish. They also are excessively effective invaders in that they can have 100,000 to 180,000 eggs per clutch, and they can have several clutches a year. And we've actually seen evidence of this in Metlakatla. Back in 2018 and 2019, we were tracking that this green crab was making its impacts in Washington. And then in 2019 and 2020, when they declared it an emergency, Metlakatla took action by reaching out to various funding agencies to start monitoring. We realized that as the southernmost community in the state of Alaska, our physical location made it highly likely that we would be in a good position to be monitoring the spread of this species into the state of Alaska. So we got funding in 2019. 2020 happened, and we were unable to really get a whole lot of field work occurring. In 2021, we kind of got our act together and we're able to get out in the field and do some monitoring. In 2022, we had a visit from our partners with NOAA and SHI, which is totally just left my brain on what that is. But they came to Metlakatla and they were actually on island visiting us when they identified the first carapace for a green crab in Tamagus Bay. And then a few days later, the first live green crab. At that time, there were detections only in Tamagus Bay. And we had what for us was a shocking 773 specimens that we trapped that year. 2023, we had consistent funding established. We had a good team identified. We had some really great outreach. We invited over 30 folks from Ketchikan and other southeast areas to come to Annette Island to do an on-island trapping experience. And of course, we did find green crab on that day with the folks who were there visiting. At that time, we were still seeing more green crab, but it was still isolated to Tamagus. At the end of 2023, we had gotten just around 2,000 specimens for the year. 2024, again, trapping year round. Now we're looking at 3 different sites where there were green crab being identified, many young of the year. And you'll see that acronym as we kind of go through here, the YOTY, young of the year, were found at that time. And at the end of 2024, we had 1,800 specimens for the year. 2025 happened. It was a big deal because hang on, I'm gonna make this smaller. The total live catch from 2024 altogether was 1,400. In 2025 alone, the crew, and I can't take any credit for this because I am just been helping with the proposal side and the financial side. I haven't been doing the field work, but the crew removed over 33,000, and they're still pulling traps or removing crab from the island from Annette Islands Reserve. And that includes the 260 plus individuals that were removed from areas like Gravina and Prince of Wales Island. When we first identified green crab on Annette Islands Reserve, we identified that all of those south-facing bays and all of Southeast Alaska were probably getting that El Nino impact. So in 2024, late 2024, we were able to go over, not we, again, Ian Hudson, who's on this call, and Nicole and a few others that were part of the team, went to Boswick and were able to trap live green crab there in Boswick. And then in 2025, I'll show you the map. They went on to other areas in Gravina, Prince of Wales Island. They worked with some folks from Sea Grant in 2024. And then in 2025, because of the volume of crab that we're catching right here in our own waters, we are focusing the primary of our energy and attention right here on Annette Island. So far in 2025, they've removed and checked over 9,500 traps. They have 5 dedicated staff. Those guys have been awesome. Here's some field photos to kind of show you a little bit of it in action. They do some of the setting by boats. They do some of it on the beach, walking out and setting traps and pulling them that way. You can see the bags and bags and bags. We have them identified so we know which areas they're coming from, so we can really be keeping good data about where the crab are most abundant, what the ages classes are, and exactly what's going on. You can see behind Bree that there are 2 freezers. We are buying more freezers. And in case you were wondering, once the crab have been cataloged, we've gone through the age classes and numbers of them, they're being crushed and delivered up to our community garden to go into the compost program. Why so many new sites in 2025? We have done a lot of outreach and effort. In fact, just last week, Ian and Nicole and Dustin and myself were on a call with the Lummi Nation, with the Shoalwater, with the Makah Nation down in Washington, and trying to understand how these crab are moving, what the influences are from other areas of outside recruitment. In 2023 and 2024, there was a strong El Nino. It increased recruitment all through the West Coast, obviously, but where it impacted Annette Island, as you can see, is now that there's really on every significant shore, every bay that we've checked, there's green crab. And that's been the same impact that we found when we went off island onto Prince of Wales. Everywhere that was good habitat, there was green crab there. So next steps, we really need to maintain our high level of community outreach and education. So we make a really big deal out of Green Crab Awareness Day, which we hold annually on July 19th. The upper right pictures, actually 2 of my grandchildren and Nicole, and we were looking at, they had live green crab for them to observe. We really want to increase people's identification ability. We know it's working because last month or so, the mayor was driving down the road. He got flagged down by a couple of little kids who had 2 green crab, and they told him that they knew they were green crab because it had 5 spines and 3 bumps, and they had gotten that information, and so they knew for sure that they were green crab. So he faithfully brought those green crab back to the DFW crew. That kind of outreach proves to us that that's where that community level is so incredibly important. We have to make sure the community is part of our team in looking for and identifying green crab populations. Because of the volume that we're seeing, and we're imagining what this is going to look like in southern Southeast Alaska, we're making a concerted effort to prioritize the protection of subsistence and commercial resources. We know that there's going to be green crab in a lot of places, so we need to make a really good effort to identify the ones that are most important for us to protect. So juvenile salmon habitat, Dungeness crab habitat, our valued eelgrass and sea asparagus beds, shellfish, clams, cockles, the things that are important for our subsistence and commercial resources. We also are going to continue to network with the tribes and the communities. These outside recruitment, we need to make sure we know what's happening around us so that we can do our best to manage green crab in the waters that are important to us. If you have any questions, these are our contact information. Nicola and Ian are both on the call today. They are the ones who are in the field doing the actual work and can give you a lot more of the tips and tricks of how to remove green crab from the water. This is a picture of a green crab full of eggs. And these are the things that we are finding regularly out in the field. And that's all I have for you right now.
Thank you, Genelle. Wow, what a sobering presentation. And yeah, from someone living in the interior, this is definitely a big exclamation marks, like wow. Thank you, Genelle. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Barbara.
I think that actually, thank you, Krista. I'm going to actually, Charmaine, I think that, well, I want to share my screen. Did you want to start, Charmaine, and then I will pick up after you, or do you want me to start?
Sure, that works for me.
Okay.
Okay, well, while Barbara pulls up our short little set of slides here, yeah, essentially, I just wanted to set a little bit of framework for where Barbara and myself come in and where UAS Catch Can kind of comes into this. And I do want to add that, you know, Barbara's been working on the European green crab much longer than myself. In fact, really my role here is mostly administration and, you know, kind of helping with the paperwork side of things and being Barbara's cheerleader in every sense of the word. And then just kind of trying to move along our community education efforts. So that's me, I'm Charmaine, and that's kind of where I come in. And then Barbara will speak more to the actual ecology and biology of the crabs. But for myself and Barbara together, of course, we were able to be awarded the Alaska CASC Ambassadors Award this past year. And part of that was designing a course because the way that we envisioned it was UAS's role as a community campus was really in education. Yes, we want to be part of the monitoring efforts and trapping efforts, and Barbara can speak more to that side of things, but mostly, you know, as a larger, somewhat larger educational institution here in Southern Southeast Alaska, really, we felt that that was our role, was to help bring information to our community members. And so in that effort, we designed a course just this past summer. So in June, we ran a field-based course to try to have people have some more hands-on time with actually doing molt walks on the beaches, hands-on time with them handling carapace, looking at images of green crab. And, you know, of course, we always had it in the back of our head that potentially we might even find green crab. Yeah, so I don't think I can advance slides. I'll have Barbara do that for me. And then just to walk through our course objectives, and then I think, pass the baton over to Barbara. This is an image here, one part of our course. We did actually go out in the boat. So we looked both at sites on the road system in Ketch Can and off of our Revilla Island. So we went up kind of George and Carroll Inlet using a chartered boat system. So our main objectives for the course were really kind of honing in on that European green crab identification for community members. And I love that story that Genelle shared from Metlakatla, that little kids, you know, can readily pick up this kind of, you know, species identification skills. But I would say with that note, it's amazing how much Barbara and I, as we're out and about even now, certainly during our class in June, but continuing in the community, our conversations with people, it often becomes apparent that they don't know what the European green crab looks like. And in fact, I would say frequently they're identifying our native green shore crab, just based on the color green, that is the invasive species. And so I do think there's still room for more awareness and education with folks, because, you know, when you get into a more nuanced conversation, sometimes you find, oh, actually folks are not very confident in their ability to identify the crab. So that was a big piece for our class. And then we did train folks on actually doing the molt walk to monitor for the carapace. And we also helped, along with Tammy Davies from Alaska Department of Fish and Game, helped with showing folks how to collect data and then what that submission looks like, so that they also, again, felt confident going out on their own and obtaining the correct permits and doing molt walks and being able to enter that data in. So those were our course objectives. And if you're comfortable with it, Barbara, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Charmaine. I would be happy to pick up here. So I have been working on the European green crab, kind of knowing kind of what was going on with them since like 2007, 8. Gary Freitag was the Alaska Sea Grant Marine Advisory person for the Ketchikan area, and he was hearing about them that long ago. My office was right next to his, and so he was talking to me about it. I helped with some monitoring in 2008, 2009 time period, trying to monitor for them. And that we didn't find anything, but he was wanting to start with the monitoring as soon as possible, because it was very likely that, like Genelle said, if Metlakatla is like the furthest south, Ketchikan is like the same region, that we'd be finding them here. So then when they were found on that island near Metlakatla in 2002, I believe it was, I was like, oh no, we've been worrying about this happening. I knew this day was coming, and I was really sorry to hear that it was here. So there was a workshop that was held here in Ketchikan and then over on Metlakatla. Alaska Sea Grant put that together, I believe, and Metlakatla Indian Community. And I participated in that workshop to train about what the green crabs were, you know, what the problem was, what our plan was, and etc. And then last fall, I've been watching, kind of keeping track of what Metlakatla Indian Community, Ian and Genelle and Nicole, everybody over there, what they've been doing, what they've been finding, and as the numbers of green crabs that they've been catching going up and up and up, I was lamenting to Charmaine last fall that we needed to be part of the solution. We were the university here in Ketchikan needed to be part of helping people know how to be helpful in the situation, and she found funding for us, which is awesome. And so we got the CASC grant, which is completely awesome, and I really appreciate that a great deal. And we were able to offer that class. Like Charmaine was saying, that happened first week of June, and we had enough funding to go down. We kind of was unclear exactly where, like how far north the green crabs had been able to populate. And so we checked quite a few places, actually a little bit south of Ketchikan, kind of adjacent to the Annette Island area, George and Carroll Inlet both, and did not actually find any in those areas. But then we checked a bunch of places along the Ketchikan road system. And during the class, we found 2 shells on one beach. And then that has kind of unfolded since then. So being part of the solution for the education also, it means having the class, to me, it also means networking with people in the community, and it means helping actually do the monitoring in the Ketchikan area. And at this point, I want to actually give a shout out to 2 people who are on here, Keenan and Athenia. Both have done a lot of monitoring here in the Ketchikan area. Athenia is with the Ketchikan Indian Community. Keenan is with Cleekit and Haida, and both of them have found molts and live crabs throughout the summer as well. So we have a pretty solid team going on here in the Ketchikan area that we will continue working and educating people and keeping on top of things as much as we can, which is going to be difficult, but we're working on it. So next slide, when we trained citizen scientists, we had a number of people in the class. You can see different people here. We wanted to train them how to do the molt walks. That is one of the best ways to actually initially determine if there are European green crab in an area. It also gives a baseline of what other crabs are there as well. So the picture on the left-hand side here is actually, it's a green shore crab, but it has weathered to be red. The photo on the far right is 2 Ziploc bags with a variety of different kinds of crabs in them. To do a molt walk, you walk like the high tide line where any shed shell has been washed up on the beach, and you collect all the different kinds of crab shells you can find. In particular, carapace, it has to be more than half of the carapace, so you know that you're not double counting a crab. One of the pieces of information that's important that I help students recognize is that a dead crab is not the same thing as a shed shell. Because they have an exoskeleton, crabs have to shed their shell in order to grow, and they do that each spring. And what they leave behind is not evidence of a dead crab, it is an empty shell because they had to shed it to grow. Many people do not understand that. So training them how to do the molt walks includes learning the different species and how to identify them, even if they are weathered and not their color that they normally are when they're living. And it's a good way of like training people just to take careful data as well. Just be careful in the data that you're collecting. Some of our successes was that we did check any number of beaches, and you can see here the boat we were on, one of the Allen Marine boats, has this fold down bow, and so we were able to go on some pretty remote beaches that were fairly inaccessible and difficult to get to, and check to see if there were the green crabs in those areas. Like I said, we did not find any green crabs, but we did find a lot of other different species of crabs, and so we have the baseline data from this one time at least to know what is there, and in the future we can compare how that might change with the spread of the green crab. This is how they might impact the species that we normally have. Some of the challenges, whether it was difficult to get to these different places, even if we were able to get to some place like Gem Cove or something like that, we were unable to actually spend enough time to actually check the whole entire beach. We tried to target the places that seemed most likely. So we have some data. Would not be able to say it's like a complete thorough data set, but we have some data from those areas. So, and then rocky beaches are kind of hard to walk onto. Some that was a little bit difficult to be able to do, but overall we had more successes than challenges, I believe. And people have a better idea of how to do the molt walks. First 2 European green crab shells, European green crab reviewed EGC. You'll see that pretty commonly. That's very common in the literature these days. First 2 European green crab shells found in the Ketchikan area. I think you're right here. She and Charmaine found the first 2 on the last day of the class on the last beach we went to, on Refuge Cove Beach. Both of them pretty small. You can see right here, this is actually fairly close to the color that they are in, or that they can be when they're living. And on this side over here, you can see there are 5 spines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is really what you're going to be looking for when you are looking to see if it's a green crab. Their spine pattern is 5 spines on one side of the eye, 3 bumps in between the eyes, and then 5 spines on the other side as well. They can vary in color actually from green or greenish to brown to kind of reddish, or even like a golden kind of a yellow sort of a color sometimes, or a mottled combination of those. So the name European green crab is actually fairly misleading because they're not necessarily green. This is actually one of the things as far as educating people to like be part of the solution, which is important, is to know that they are not always green. And we have native species of crabs here that are green that are not the problem. So I have had conversation multiple times, sometimes with more success than others, to help people understand that just because a crab that they find is green does not mean that it is one of the bad ones. So that's actually one of the challenges as well. Speaking of challenges a moment ago. So we did find the first two. Tammy Davis, who is the invasive species coordinator for she's actually the whole department of invasive species for marine and invasive species for the state of Alaska Department of Fish and Game, was actually helping us with the class. And so she was there when the first ones were found on Refuge Cove Beach, which was a little bit of a hard day because we didn't really want to find any, and we thought we were kind of in the clear since we, done the class all week. This was the last beach on the last day, but we did find them, and so we reported them, and there we go. Over the course of the summer, then especially June on into July, the number of places that we found with European green crabs, either live ones or shed shells, which again is a really good indication that we have a green crab population there, has really expanded. This is the current map of the green crabs, the reported green crabs. This marker should actually be down here in Myers Chip. That's the furthest north point at this time. There were 2 shells found there. One of the successes of this class is that because we found shells in the Ketchikan area on one of the beaches, like just slightly north of town, definitely within the borough, people live way out past Refuge Cove. We got a lot of media coverage. I think that I was part of 9 different media, articles, mostly print, some radio, 1 TV, a lot of media coverage, which meant that also because people know that I am one of the people in Ketchikan, and like people send me pictures of things like all the time, sometimes more than once a day, to ask me what it is. They know I can identify different things that we live and grow around here. So 3 of these new spots actually come from people who, actually 4 of them, are people who know that I can identify things and had heard in the media about the European green crab, and they reached out to me and sent me pictures of, in one case, a live crab, green crab, and the other ones all shed shells, to confirm that they had actually found European green crab, which they had, and I reported those to Tammy Davis, that they are included on this map. So not only did we have the class and have the successes that we've had with that, but then the ongoing, continuing monitoring. I continued helping with monitoring. I went out with Athenia, Keenan went out. People then heard about it and reached out to say, have I found them? And not all of them had, but 4 of them were actually new spaces, though confirmed. So it's disappointing, but not unexpected to see so many new places. Not just Ketchikan's right down here, and that island is right in here. And actually, I don't think that, the map that you showed had more spots around it than is currently on this map. So they're spreading. They will continue spreading. The way that they spread is not the crabs actually walking on the bottom or along the beaches. They spawn and release. When the eggs hatch, they release a free-floating, free-swimming larval stage that can stay in the water column for up to 3 months, which means that they can get pushed pretty far by the currents in 3 months before they settle out and start a new population in that new area. The prevailing currents push northward through Southeast Alaska, or kind of northwestward through Southeast Alaska, which is how they got to Southeast Alaska as well. Their populations in California, Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. We've been watching them kind of march up the coast over the last few decades. The larval stage is getting pushed up the coast by the prevailing currents. The Japanese current kind of loops up around through Southeast Alaska. And they were first found on a net island. That does not mean that's the first population that actually had been established in Alaska. That was just the first place they'd been found. And those populations will continue to expand and be pushed up the coast. How far, it will depend on how warm the water is. There will eventually be water that's too cold for them to be able to survive and reproduce. They do have really broad environmental tolerances, so they can tolerate broad temperature fluctuations. They can tolerate a wide range of salinities. They are a successful animal. They are a successful invader. Right now, the guess is that they will be able to populate throughout all of Southeast Alaska and South Central Alaska. They may or may not be able to live north of the Aleutian chain. Kind of depends. If we continue seeing warmer ocean temperatures, they will be able to expand further north than South Central. As we kind of mentioned a little bit, as has been mentioned, involving the public is going to be part of the solution here. We would like to be able to eradicate them, but that is really not actually a feasible operation. Even with all of the work, and it's an amazing amount of work that Metlakatla Indian Community has been doing over the years, they are continuing to spread north from populations already established in Alaska and from populations further south in British Columbia, Washington, etc. So functional eradication, keeping them out of places where there are like eelgrass beds we want to protect, crab populations we want to protect. Like Genelle was saying, the various different things we like to harvest, we want to protect those places. And that's going to require local people actually helping with this fight. And that means educating them as to what the problem is, how to identify the green crabs, and how they can actually help. So that gets back to kind of the education portion of things as well. And I'm planning on continuing with the monitoring. But I'm really going to focus on the education portion of it as much as possible. We would like to be able to offer the European green crab class again that we offered last June. We need to find some funding for that. A lot of these things come down to funding. But we would like to offer that class again. We ended up with a fair number of new monitors here in Ketchikan based on that class. One of them in particular, Tammy has called her a super monitor. Maria Dutzak in Ketchikan went out multiple times throughout the summer and did a lot of monitoring efforts for us, which was completely awesome. So the class was a success in that way too. We've developed some educational materials about how to identify the European green crab and some of the other crabs that we see in southern Southeast Alaska. We're going to be distributing those. And then I also, working with CASC again, developed a flyer about the process of crab molting. So is it dead or did it shed? It's kind of focus on that one. We're going to be distributing those as well. Public presentations and professional conferences will help us also continue to spread the word of what's happening and what needs to happen. Right now, part of the problem is that not only do people not really know what they are looking for, but current ADF&G regulations state that you cannot actually retain any invasive species. And that's an effort to be like keeping invasive species from spreading, thinking of things like plants on land mostly actually. So it's not actually legal to kill them, to harvest them, to keep them, which is a little bit of I mean, how is that going to work out? So in order to like make it so that people can actually go out and like harvest them, whether they decide to eat them, they are edible, or compost them and have some fertilizer for their garden, whatever. There needs to be some regulations put together, proposed regulations to be brought before the Board of Fish. And I have been talking with Keenan in particular, actually, to be trying to collaborate on getting a proposal to bring to them to make it so that to allow a harvest of the European green crab, so that people can like be part of the solution in that regard as well. And then we will continue to be monitoring, doing boat walks, live crab walks. Actually, a couple of the live crab that we have found on the Ketchikan road system, kind of beaches around here, were found just by walking along on the beach. So on this map back here, we can see that Ketchikan is right here. All of that. So we have found molts, either molts and or live crabs on beaches. There's the Settlers Cove, there's the South Point Higgins Beach, Refuge Cove, Mud Bight, Rotary Beach, and Herring Cove Beach, and Saxman Seaport. So like basically every beach along the whole Ketchikan road system that we've gone to, we have found evidence of green crabs. Not in great numbers yet. So they're not everywhere like some people are saying, but they are spreading, and we're finding enough of them that it's concerning. So we will continue doing the moat walks and live crab walks. I will, and we'll be working with other people here in the region to be continuing that work. So that's what I have here, actually. And I can take the Genelle and Charmaine and I can take questions now. If anybody has any questions, and maybe you have them in the.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Charmaine, I don't see any questions yet. And just one in from Nicole, mostly just shout out to Keenan, yeah, but yeah, just welcome anyone at this point. Feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the chat. You should be able to take yourself off mute if you want to ask your question directly. So we'll hold on here just to see if we have any questions come through. Yeah, thank you, Keenan, for that comment.
I just wanted to mention that we wanted to, acknowledge the amount of support that Metlakatla has gotten from the tribes south of us. For whatever reason, it's the tribes in Washington and British Columbia that are taking the bulk of the lead on green crab removal and work. And I don't know if it's just because of a funding scenario or how that's all working out, but they have been incredibly transparent in sharing with us their methods, and sharing with us their challenges, and sharing with us their, whatever tips or tricks that we can share with them, and vice versa. It's been really, really encouraging to see that kind of collaboration with them. And so we've been trying to pay it forward by, sharing what we've learned with everyone around us, so that we can benefit and see, because trapping in Southeast Alaska isn't the same as trapping in Southern Washington or Oregon. And so we're adapting practices and making sure that we're being effective in this environment.
Barbara, can you address this question in the chat? Is the sea otter only species that eat green crab?
That is an excellent question, and that is, I believe, based on a paper that has been done, a study that was done in the Elkhorn Slough in California, where there are sea otters that are really actually predating heavily on a green crab population there. And that study, I have been asked about that multiple times. It's like maybe the sea otters will just fix the problem, and that is still to be determined. There's not very many places, I don't think, that have a really strong population of sea otters and the green crabs. That study that was done on Elkhorn Slough, I think, has really good internal validity. It is a good study. I don't know that it has good external validity. I don't know that sea otters eating green crabs is something that happens across the whole range of sea otters. That may or may not happen in Alaska. One of the things about that study is that the Elkhorn Slough is actually quite shallow, and the sea otters don't normally find food up super shallow in estuary kind of an area, is my understanding. So sea otters may or may not eat them in Alaska. We have kind of a different terrain in some places around here. I hope that they're part of the solution. Other animals that predate on them, they are eaten. I am imagining that they would be eaten by mink and marten and land otters. So one of the things that one of the issues Genelle was mentioning, they rip up the eelgrass. They also actually can they can beat up and eat Dungeness crab that are smaller than them, and they can also catch and eat salmon, like smolt fries that are smaller than them. So they're really voracious. They dig up soft shell clams, whatever. They can eat a lot of different things. Ripping up the eelgrass is also detrimental because it's destroying habitat that is good for crabs and salmon. So it's a double whammy kind of a bad deal from them. I would imagine that I haven't actually seen a really super great list of things that eat them, but things that eat crabs would no doubt catch them and eat them as well. So that would be mink, marten. Various different kind of birds would potentially eat them. I've seen black bears down on beaches turning over rocks and eating the shore crabs. I imagine they would do the same thing to the European green crab as well. So we might have enough predation in Alaska that would help solve the problem. So far, though, they're still spreading. So we can hope. That was an excellent question.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. There's another question from Brian Holter. I'm curious about the eggs from the crab. Are they marketed for eating?
I am not aware. Genelle, do you know, are they marketed for eating? I don't think the eggs are marketed for eating.
I haven't heard of that, but the place you can find the answer would be just by looking what they're doing on the East Coast. They're so prevalent on the East Coast that they're trying to make whiskey out of them. They're doing soft shell crab with them. They're doing everything they can to try to invasivore the green crab because they're like the only thing left in those systems. So they're edible. Not at this year's green crab awareness day, but the one before. One of our techs, Spencer, did a crab boil, and so he had green crabs that they prepared and had them there. So they are edible. They're just they're hard to eat. Ian's in the chat. He's mentioned the seafood stock. We were watching this invasivore guy on YouTube who targeted green crab in Washington and in Oregon, and that's his whole living, is eating invasive species. And so he came up with a really great way to do a stock using green crab. So there's ways that humans can use them, but then you run into that tricky world or slippery slope. If you make them desirable, then suddenly people want them around if they become commercially viable. So you got to be careful with trying to make it suddenly a commercially beneficial. So we want to make sure that we're trying to remove them from the system, not create situations where people want them.
That's a good point. And if the eggs are edible, they do actually, they can reproduce twice in 1 year. That which would give you a lot of eggs to harvest. But yeah, I can't imagine anybody deciding that they're a beneficial thing, but that is a good point because some people might.
Yeah, there's
They hadn't considered
also a good chat conversation going on in the chat in terms of what you might be able to make out of them. I might put you, Caitlin, on the spot just with your comment here. Sounds like you might have an opportunity that would be helpful for Barbara, Charmaine. And Genelle, you want to chime in?
Yeah, thanks, Krista. Hi, everybody. My name's Caitlin Demoski. I'm the Alaska Region Fish and Wildlife Biologist for the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society. And I'm Koyukon Athabascan and Lower Tanana Dene, and I work from home here in Palmer, Alaska. So NAFWS, as I'll call it, is having our annual Alaska Regional Conference. It'll be in Anchorage on Tuesday, October 14th. And hosted by the Organized Village of Grayling. We have a lot of travel assistance funding available for tribal representatives or tribal staff. So if anybody's interested in that, you can email me. I put my email in the chat. Yeah, it would be a great space, I think, for this kind of presentation if you guys were interested and available. I put the link to the web page in the chat as well, but feel free to email me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
I do have a quick if traveling was not is there a possibility of maybe presenting via Zoom to that conference?
Ooh, good question. Probably. I think that we'll have to get with it's at the Marriott in downtown Anchorage, so I think we'll have to get with their IT team and ask them about that because that's a little bit over my technical capabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to inquire and get back to you.
Thank you. I will email you, and I appreciate the invitation. And so we'll just maybe email back and forth the next couple of days and figure out if that could maybe potentially happen. Genelle and Charmaine, would you like me to include you on that email as well?
Or if you like.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question for all of you. Are there some online resources that you can suggest or point to for folks here on the call and that kind of walk through how you might identify a European green crab? You mentioned, Barbara, that some of that education material is in the works, but yeah, just curious if there's sort of go-to resources that you like to send folks, and if you'd be willing to share some of those in the chat.
Right now, what we've created is not online. I would be happy to share it with anybody. Wondering if I could do that. They're not really quite ready. If anybody wants them, they can email me. I'm going to put my
if it's sort of will be ready soonish, we can also add it as an attachment to this presentation down the line.
maybe that's a better way of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just added into the chat a link, you know, while not perfect, a good place to start too is the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. They certainly have, you know, a whole page with photos, and sort of some diagrams and, you know, labeled so that you can have a sense of what you're looking for. So that's a resource as well.
We've been posting, not myself personally, but Nicole has been putting together some really great ID information on the Metlakatla Indian Community Facebook page. And they have been sharing that right with monthly updates so that that's part of our outreach that we've been doing. And the European green crab logo that we have, which is a form line design done by one of the high school students here, Elizabeth Anderson in Metlakatla, does a really good job of just really focusing on those 5 spines the eye, the 3 bumps. And so using that on all of our outreach and education materials has been an effective way to help people more clearly identify a green crab from any kind of a native species.
Great. Thank you. Those are both great resources. Appreciate it. Well, altogether, definitely a very sobering presentation. Thank you so much, Genelle, Charmaine, and Barbara for sharing some of the work that you're doing, as well as the resources here. If there are any other questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat. If not, this presentation will be available on the Alaska CASC website. And I'll go ahead and follow up via email to those that have registered, letting you know when that's uploaded. So if it's something that you want to forward on to folks that maybe were not here today, that are interested in learning a little bit more about this topic, that should be a resource here in the future. So with that, thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.
And thank you so much for the invite to be presenting today. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to have you guys.
Thanks.